Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Today, this is streaming with Chris. Highly exciting, action-packed show that will probably won't make you bored or something. Anyway, let's transition into me with my fingers pointing at the camera, indicating that I'm cool. And that's all. That's all I've got, because nothing else seems to pop into my mind. Now, usual stuff, we all know how it goes. First, I'm going to talk about whatever I want to talk about, and then we cut to the questions. So, hello everyone, and, well, that's about it. So, questions. But before the questions, which I highly recommend that people should do, let's talk about something that has been on my board, which I track all the streaming progress with, for a couple of weeks now. And I keep promising to some of the people, like friends, who are also watching this, that I am going to talk about it. But so far I haven't had the time. But right now, let's go into here again, you know, fingers, because we are cool. I mean, you are cool as well, and so am I, so just like... But if you do this finger stuff, especially if you're at work, that's not exactly what you want to have, so, well, whatever. Let's not go into that thing again. Let's talk about... Okay. I always talk about Budapest. I know I should talk about everything else, because Hungary is not Budapest, which is often actually compared to or mixed with Bucharest, which is the capital of Romania. Two capitals, two countries, different stuff. And so far, actually, I haven't experienced anyone that actually made a mistake with this, but that's just me. I'm a lucky person, so I don't know. But let's talk about Budapest, especially Budapest kerületek. Now, of course, a couple of you have actually asked me to talk in Hungarian a bit more. Unfortunately, that is not very fair to most viewers who are, well, currently, I guess, trying to grasp the meaning of this whole craziness. But in this case, kerület, that's very easy to translate, because that's district. So, Budapest kerületek. Now, to be honest, as you can see, Google kind of tried to fix it for me, indicating that this should be Budapest kerületei, using the possessive, so Budapest's districts. Because, yeah. So also you can say Budapest kerületei. Oh, Jesus, what am I typing? Kerületei. But you can say Budapesti kerületek. Probably this is the part where if this was a live lesson, people would just like take out their knives and just charged at me, because what I seemingly did was just to put the E on the other word, and then I made it not capital, I mean the starting letter, and just I did a bunch of whole weird stuff. But the truth is that the I has actually two purposes. So sometimes you use it for possessive, well, in this case it's the third person possessive, but normally if you want to make an adjective out of a noun, which is Budapest, well, actually probably a name of something, so London, New York, it's the same, Londoni, New Yorki, Krakow-Szörcsegi, whatever, just a random name, and then you basically put the I in there, indicating that it's kind of from there. It's in English I would be, I guess, Budapest-like or Budapest kind of districts. Oh, I made a mistake though. But I was just... but you know, I was just checking if you paid attention, which I often do. So, anyways. Now, I'm not going to talk about all the districts of Budapest. That's ridiculous. I mean, that's even like... because most of them are boring. I mean, some of them have names, but most of them are boring. So, who cares about them? But, there is this one here. There's the tiny little district insanely close to the center, which is so famous of its violence that it's very famous. So, I guess that basically it's the 8th district I'm talking about. Even there is an animation film about it. I haven't seen it. I have not dared seeing it. Some people say it's okay, but most say that it's not that good. But anyways, so basically, as you can see from the pictures, well, you know, I mean, there is a stereotype that mainly gypsies live there, so there's that. And of course, people who don't have a lot of money live there, so it's not the nicest district ever, and I'm not exaggerating here. So, as you can see, it's not perfect. There are some problems, but actually, to be absolutely honest, there were some problems. And at some point the police realized that this can't go on forever. We live in the 21st century, so they put a bunch of street cameras, CCTVs in there, and now it's mostly alright. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's as safe as all the other districts, which means that you should not go out at night alone, especially if you're a woman and tiny and good looking. But you can do that as like a man. If you feel that you're really good looking, probably it's a good idea not to go out in these areas at night. But I guess that could be said about all the other districts. But there you go. Now we can enjoy some pictures of the district. Very weird and quite controversial. So there you have it. That's all there is to it. It's fun. I know people who live there, and now it's alright. I mean, of course everybody complains that it's not that safe, it's whatever, but the truth is that it's quite alright. Am I still streaming though? I guess. It's just... it's not... I don't know. Things are weird, but that's just me. This is just an intermission, so you can, like, I've given you a lot of facts, so now you have to rest. Just sleep, take 5, drink coffee, or drink a cup of tea. That's perfectly alright. Especially if you're watching the video. That's okay. Now, you know I always have to remind people to ask questions. And I know I don't want to repeat myself, so I will invent, in the future, creative ways to sort of, yeah, well, there you go, now there's a question. So I really had to threaten everyone with nothing. So, yeah, okay, well, so, again, like, gun stuff, there is one question. Well, technically, I mean, up until the last couple of years, it's not the US, so everybody, obviously, I mean, not everybody has all sorts of crazy guns, like big bazookas. Technically, you can own a small air gun or something without any paperwork, so you can protect yourself in your home. And recently the law changed, so if somebody trespasses on your territory, then sure, you can shoot them, and you can always say that, well, they frightened me, so I actually put a bullet in their heads, and I'm still very frightened. Although I guess you should be a little bit more believable in the eyes of the police, and not a complete and utter psychopath as I am. But right, so more questions related to this whole self-defense stuff. So pepper spray, that's let me just go back to this, because then you can see me more, and I've got nothing to show you. So pepper spray, yeah, perfectly fine, everything's cool, no laws against it. Technically, if someone wants to be very, very clever and jumps at you and let you pepper spray them, they can kind of sue you, and if they have witnesses, you can be in trouble. But you know, it's that sort of, it's as opposed to the US laws, for instance, which are precedent based. Hungary has an actual law book, so as long as something is in there, there you go. But this whole pepper spray, self-defense, whatever, it really falls into the category of when somebody rear-ends you with their car. It's their fault. But what if you back up and you kind of make them rear-end you? If they don't have a dash cam or any proof, well, there you go. So, okay, now, homeless people in Budapest. Right. Well, the problem with homeless people is that that's a very interesting story, at least to me, is that up until this whole change in the system, let's call it revolution, but it really wasn't. In 1990, so up until 1990, it was completely and utterly and insanely illegal to be homeless. So if you were in trouble, the state issued something for you. Probably a very crappy home, but you did. And also it was illegal not to work, which is fun, because really you were labeled and sentenced to prison if you were unemployed. Now, you could say that, wow, that's crazy. But the truth is that it was mandatory for the state to employ everybody. So you really couldn't do such a awful job that you weren't hired or left alone, or basically nobody was fired, which is awesome. So no homeless people. Now, because people got tired of this after 30, 40 years, and which, you know, some people, like most of the population, some people are, you know, one or two people can be lazy. These people outright told everyone that they don't want to work, they will use the benefit that they get from the state because they are unemployed. Unfortunately, as you probably can guess, this kind of business plan is not the best in the world, so eventually you will lose everything. And since people lost everything, I mean, they were homeless, and for a long time nothing was done about this. And still to this day there are some homeless, and there was an interesting interview with someone, a homeless person, maybe a couple of years ago, I guess, that they actually they were asked, I mean, the homeless person was asked the question, why are you homeless? I mean, you clearly alright, you have an iPhone and whatever, what's the deal here? Why? And he said that, well, to be honest, I can go on and get some job for a minimum wage, and then try to rent an apartment. It's really hard and horrible and small and whatever. Or I can actually get like 1,000 euros every day. Although probably he didn't get 1,000 euros every day, because he said like with an hour of work, he got his food, he got his savings for the iPhone and whatever. So, you know, people. The only downside is actually of this whole fantastic living is that you don't really shower. So, yeah. So it's interesting, and they try to make it, I mean, this whole homeless business illegal again, but this is not the old times anymore. The state does not want to employ these people, so all they do is they put them in kind of like, well, not prisons because they are called homeless shelters, but you know, you have a small room that you share with others, you have 3 meals a day, you do some work, and you don't really leave. So, you know, kind of like a prison. And so yeah. Well, okay, so language course. I don't know about the Balaton Institute. Look, I mean, normally, if I wanted to be a really smart, or actually a very stupid businessman, I could always recommend my services to people. However, I'm just one person, I do one-on-one classes, and I do have a certain teaching style. So, you know, downsides. But if you love getting to know others and you consider yourself quite social, then I would say that almost any decent language course would do. Because essentially they do what I do. Try to teach the language. So the Balaton Institute, I heard the name, I heard nothing bad about it, so I guess that seems alright. So yeah, I guess those are all the questions. Well, if there are no more questions for a bit, I can go here and just look at this Balaton Intézet Budapest. Let's see. So that's a thing, and that's stuff, and language courses, and what not. I'd say that the prices are very good, I have to say. These are quite normal prices for like 300 hours worth of lessons that you can get. Obviously this is a group price, but if you think about it, that would be a couple of like this is for 15 weeks, probably not. I mean, it depends on how long you would stay in Budapest. That is for 10 weeks, a little bit cheaper, but still, look, I mean, 600 or 1,000 euros for this whole language course thing, that's perfectly alright. It's a lot cheaper if you have a private tutor, and you get to know other people. And I would say that I know of a place. No, this is not the meeting planner I'm looking for. Because there is a group that organizes, I guess this one? I would not swear on my family that this is the thing, but I know that I've been to at least one of these things at some point, and these are pretty good. Lots of people go there. Of course they speak English, so but there are a couple of Hungarians wanting to practice English, and it is possible for you to practice Hungarian depending on your level. And since these kind of you can always ask around whether they offer a sort of night out or an evening out or a pub crawl of some sort, because once you get to know people, you can always just go out with friends and whatnot. So that this seems quite alright. I would probably recommend it. And well, yeah, my name. That's something that sometimes comes up. So the pronunciation of my name in Hungarian is always surprising, because I pronounce my name Krisz in Hungarian. But of course that's not the whole story, because that's not my full name, and that's where the pronunciation differs, because Christian would be the name of me in English, but in Hungarian it's Krisztián, and my last name is Kovács, which is quite a regular name. So there you have it. Now you know a little bit more about me, which is awesome, I guess. I don't know, but I must be very interesting. At least that's what I imagine when I am in a dark room alone before sleep. So there you have it. Right, so assuming that someone, just going back to the courses a little bit, assuming that someone would have 10 weeks, about 700 euros, and you already have a room, or you can stay with a friend or something like that, then probably it's worth having this whole ordeal, because it's quite alright. You do have to mind that it starts at 9 most of the time, and during the day it's like 45 lessons. So if you come to Budapest and you don't want to travel all around the country using those 600 euros, then you can just do stuff in the morning, and then you're of course free in the afternoon to discover the secrets of Budapest. So that's what would I would suggest. But we can go on with all the questions. I have a couple of things that I could discuss if there are no more questions, but it seems that these are the things that people are interested in nowadays. So right, so then yeah, why, I'm not sure I understand the question, why isn't it, well, of course, if the question is about why isn't it with an S, it's because the Hungarian letter S is an S, and then if you put a Z in there, that makes it an S. So we have the letter S. And technically, the way I shorten my name, Krisz, is not an official shortening. But I'm not sure how much of you knew, but there is an official book for names in Hungarian, and you can only choose from them. And note that this is not North Korea. We don't have 28 names that you can choose from. There are thousands and thousands, but this way, I guess, the government tries to fight stuff like people naming their kids after furniture, for instance, like chair or table, or after cars like Mercedes, although there is an official name in Hungarian, Mercedes. I'm not sure how I feel about that though, but it's a female name, and you can name your kid Mercedes. Mercedes, that would be the Hungarian equivalent. I guess that kind of implies that when you grow up you should be able to afford a Mercedes, or I don't know. So, right, and there is another question about families then. So let's talk about families before I go back to another question, but that's more grammatic. So, well, okay, so family names are based on, just like in English or in any other case in history, family names are based on mostly professions or places. So my profession, I guess, would be a blacksmith, but I'm not a blacksmith apparently, because I'm doing this streaming, though that doesn't really stops me of being a blacksmith, but I'm not. Anyways, so no, I mean, this is not the kind of story that the origin is the same family, people just started naming themselves. So there you go. Now, a little bit about this whole book of names. There is the book of names, and technically you can request a new name like Porsche or chair or spaceship, but there are people who would who could deny this request. So technically you must be sensible with your request. And now the weather with Chris. No, kidding. It's another question. So here is the question. How would I say in megyek? Kéthely is a small village near Balaton. Yeah, okay, yeah. Well, yes, you should use that, but instead use re, because it's a front vowel word. And you don't have to use the én, which would be, of course, logical, especially if you speak English or German or something like that, because in English there is no other way but to use the personal pronoun. But in Hungarian you have the attachment. And since this is the most important rule that I tell everyone, whether it's you or just a friend or someone who I actually teach, it's the same thing I tell everyone. You have to use attachments, and you have to think with attachments, because everything else is there for mostly emphasis. So if I say that én megyek Kéthelyre, then you're emphasizing it. So that would, in English, that would sound like I do go to Kéthely, which is, without provoking, that just sounds silly. So there you go. Use attachments, and just very important, pay attention to whether it's like there are high-pitched things or low-pitched sounds in the word, which is like front vowel is the high and back vowel is the low. So yeah. And then problems with things. Let's see. So problems with these words, ilyen, olyan, and these words pedig, that's just one, viszont, and lastly így és úgy. Oh yeah. Well, that is something that's a bit complicated, I would say. So, but there are simple ways to use them. I'm not sure how complicated you want to make your sentences, but basically ilyen means like this. So for instance, ilyen autóm van, I have a car like this. Very simple. Olyan is the same, but Well, the big thing is that the big difference is that this one is close to me, and then far from me, and then the other is far from me. But I guess I kind of killed the explanation, because like this and like that probably perfectly explains everything. So, well, but I tend to do that. Just for the record, I wanted to be sure that even I understand stuff. Now, pedig. Pedig is very easy. It's a fancier way of saying de, which is but. But of course there are different uses, and it's a little bit more literature-like. So you don't have to use that. That is perfectly fine, but you can use it. It's a little bit, it puts a little bit more emphasis. So in English that would something be like, I like this thing, but to tell the truth I don't really like it, or something. So it's a little, it tells you a little bit more, but there is no direct translation. And then viszont, well, yeah, it's the same. So it's another way of, that's very close to there, and often people use it. Now what you should never use is this, these two together. And I'm telling you that you shouldn't use it, and I'm telling everyone that they should not use it, yet tons of Hungarians, or well, a lot of Hungarians use it. That's the truth. And it's wrong. And then lastly, így és úgy. Well, there you go. So, same rule as the previous one. So, I run in the forest. I don't know how I come up with these this way. So basically it tries to describe a certain way of doing things, while the previous one tries to describe something, a noun or a situation that is like this. So a bit different. Oh, there you go. And all right. So I guess that it's mostly done. And just when I switched the screen, and then somebody just like swooshed in, or whatever the word would be, and let's go back and then add hanem to this, although I'm not going to do that out of revenge, because usually these are used together. So no but. So technically hanem means but it's not really in that category above that we discussed before. So there you go. It's not this way, but that way. Now you can enjoy it. So I connected everything, all that we have learnt, culminating into this crazy sentence, the big climax. Although actually we have a couple of minutes left, so... Oh yeah. So it's like the end of a really cool action movie, although I don't see any girls around. I'm not sure I can get the girl in the end, and certainly I don't want That's not the kind of girl I would want. That's a different thing. That those are kids, and kids are. It's not. It's interesting that in the end of the action movie, like, nobody gets the kid. It's not a thing. Although there are some like kid rescue movies, but I think that's something I just should stop explaining. And let's go back to this one. So yeah, and then that is that one is not the case. So just another question popped in. This is not the case here, unfortunately. That would be sham. So that is something that's different. It's quite interesting, at least to me, the way that, as I had a German teacher, and I don't know a lot of German. It was just like 2 years in high school, so that's not the language I mastered, if I could say like at all that I mastered a language. But she had a very interesting saying, like she said, because she made me guess, which I often do with my own students, just encourage everything, even you, to guess the things, because once you get a grasp on the logic of Hungarian, then you're set for life. But she had this thing that she made us guess, and then when we guessed wrong, she said, well, that could be, but unfortunately it's not like that. So technically, in your case, sham or neither nor could be, unfortunately not. So we have our own rules, own crazy stuff for that. And then I guess last question, I would say. So sometimes we put R's or A before names, sometimes we put nothing. Does it mean that this a noun and not important in that case? Right, so basically just like in English, you should put an or the in front of the nouns. Unfortunately, sometimes Hungarian talks about stuff that we mean in general. So what we want to explain is something in general, and then we don't put anything in there. But most of the time, and I have to stress this, most of the time it's just like in English. So you put an in front of chair, for instance, egy szék. You put the in front of a dog, for instance, the dog, a dog in particular. And then you can do crazy stuff like víz, which is water. There is not much, it's uncountable. There's not much to do there. And of course there is vizek, which is waters, like rivers and lakes of a country. And then optionally you can say the waters, for instance, of something. So then you have it. These are the normal rules, and of course sometimes, but even English does that in business English. For instance, you could say that you could say a title, for instance, user's manual, and then you don't have to say a user's manual or the user's manual, because just it's in general. But user is countable. You should put an a in there or a the, but you don't. So that's another story for another evening. but this one was the short version. Hope that clears things up a little bit. So today we did think, and I hope that everyone enjoyed stuff. There is still time for some late questions if we wish so, but I do not want to start another subject or topic in this case, and I don't really have any marketing stuff to say because I'm not that kind of person, but I guess I could remind everyone to the Facebook page, which is this one, is the it has my face on it, so you recognize it. As a friend of mine put a face on it, and then, well, there you go. And we put up some stuff in there, so enjoy that. I'd say, but that's all I can do. It's of course like free, so hopefully you'll like it. But that's about it, and I say that's it. So thank you again for watching. I still do enjoy these things quite a lot, so if you have any more questions next time we can talk about it, and then don't forget to come back next time as well. So see you because you're probably watching this alone, but there's like a bunch of people watching, but I'm not going to explain that again. This is something I don't want to go there. I really don't want to go there. So thank you for watching, and see you next week, same time like every Wednesday. Alright, so goodbye.